Cutting photos doesn't really hurt anyone, but can your supernatural sense affect your morals?
I'm at the ruins of the monastery at Qumran, where scribes are thought to have written down the famous Dead Sea Scrolls, a series of ancient Hebrew religious manuscripts discovered in 1947. For thousands of years, religious texts like this have inspired and helped guide the moral choices of many people. But what's behind this powerful influence that such texts have? And we're gonna play a game that explores just this question.
We're here with science journalist Cara Santamaria to put our morals to the test. She's helping to run an experiment that will show the amazing effect unseen spiritual beings can have on how people act. We invited several groups to take part in our experiment. One at a time, the members of the first group were asked to try their hand at an old-fashioned wire buzzer game. The goal is to move a metal hoop all the way around the wire. If the loop touches the metal, you trigger an annoying buzz. Sitting alone in the room, they have to report how many buzzes they make. The trick is that we'll also be secretly watching them the whole time, counting the right number.
All right, so Robert and Rhonda, I see here that you reported that you made 18 mistakes, right? And you reported 21 mistakes. Now, what you actually don't know is that while you were running that task, we were recording you. There are hidden cameras all over this room. So we know that those weren't your actual numbers. Robert, how many mistakes did you actually make?
Oh, somewhere in the 20s.
Yeah? Kind of lost count?
Oh, yeah.
And what about you, Rhonda?
38.
So the funny thing is that the way that you guys reported is actually really common. So the data show that in a similar setup, when people don't think anybody's watching, they tend to underreport the mistakes that they made. It's pretty standard. So one thing I want to know is, what is your religious affiliation?
I'm not religious.
You're not religious. Okay, and what about you?
I definitely believe.
You're a believer. So non-believers, believers, we do tend to find that this phenomenon occurs across the spectrum of faith, and you guys have shown that really well today.
Our players were expected to use the honor system to keep track of their totals. But as you see, the real score is fibbing 1, honor 0. Now we asked another subject to play, only this time we did a little fibbing of our own.
This is really weird, but the librarians told me that, like, you're not allowed to sit in this chair because there's some sort of weird story about, like, a librarian, an elderly librarian, I think, died in this chair. Yeah, and they kept it here, and so there's some sort of kind of, I don't know, ghost stories that, you know, her spirit still stays here and haunts the library. So definitely I would just recommend sort of staying in that chair, okay? All right.
Cara's suggestion is called priming and has been shown to influence people's minds and behavior. Will this woman's brain believe in the spirit of the elderly librarian that lives on in that chair? We set up hidden cameras to keep track of whether people would lie when asked to play a wire buzzer game. With no one watching, people tended to underreport their mistakes. But watch what happens when we prime the next player that there was the ghost of a dead librarian lingering in a nearby chair.
Okay, so Kim, I see here that you reported that you made 27 mistakes, and you, in fact, only made 27 mistakes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so here's the thing. Oftentimes, when people do this task and they don't think that anybody's watching, they sometimes underreport. But because there was a little white lie on my part about a spirit of a woman hanging out in the room, we sometimes start to feel like there really is a presence watching over us, and we're less likely to cheat or lie. Isn't that crazy?
A little crazy, yeah.
Obviously, we don't necessarily need a belief in the divine to act morally, but as humanity developed, one pretty effective way to keep ourselves practicing honest behavior when nobody else was looking may have been to believe in an all-seeing supernatural presence to moderate our actions and keep us from straying off the path. Even if you don't believe in the supernatural, the mere suggestion of a supernatural presence or anything watching can set you on a kind of moral alert.
As technology increases our ability to watch and be watched, who knows how this will affect our moral behavior? Even more profoundly, how will growing technology affect our brain's ability to relate to God?
As science updates our idea of what the brain is and can do, how might our idea of God change? How will we think of God in the future?